On this channel, we've covered genocidal robots, political blunders that nearly end with the enslavement of humanity, and common enemies coming together to fight much bigger threats. But on this day of April 1st, we will cover another story, an epic tale that involves commitment, honor, determination, and trucking. Yes, trucking. In December of the year 2003, Tilly Garrison was gifted a set of antique furniture by a friend who had recently passed away. However, a major logistical problem presented itself. The furniture was in Arlen, Texas, whereas Tilly now lived in Arizona. Fortunately, her son Hank Hill stepped up and offered to have the furniture brought to her in time for Christmas. Now, Hank could have just made arrangements with a moving company to have the furniture transported to Arizona, but Hank took the opportunity to live a lifelong dream of his, becoming a trucker. So, he rented a big rig truck to transport his mother's furniture personally. What would happen after would forever be remembered in the annals of local legend, and be simply referred to as the Ballad of Hank Hill. Accompanied by his son, Bobby Hill, both father and son would live the American dream of being truckers, exploring the great truck stops and tourist traps that America had to offer. Little did they know, though, that Hank's friends, Boomhauer, Bill Dotrieve, and Dale Gribble were envious of Hank's journey. In a desperate bid to go with Hank and Bobby, they smuggled themselves into the trailer itself. This decision on their part would have drastic consequences for all involved that no one could have predicted. While on the road, Hank and Bobby were enjoying quality father-son time together, with Hank teaching his son the basics of handling a big rig and Bobby listening enthusiastically. But while passing through a large patch of desert, Hank turned on the air conditioning to make themselves more comfortable in the heat. However, the trailer itself did not enjoy this luxury, and the smuggled trio inside slowly began to cook and become delirious from the extreme heat. Finally, after a hard day of trucking, Hank pulled into a truck stop diner to get dinner. As they were heading to the entrance, Bobby pointed out why they were not taking their place in a nearby line of people waiting to get in. But Hank happily pointed out that since they were truckers now, they could use the truckers' side entrance and go in directly as they had a schedule to keep. Once they entered, though, the real truckers inside scorned Hank, as they considered him to be just a guy with a truck, and not a true trucker. Hank immediately retorted back, inviting them to inspect his truck themselves to see how immaculately maintained it was. But just as Hank finished stating this, gunshots rang out from the back of his trailer and punctured the trailer doors, forming a man-sized hole, with a half-naked and delirious Dale Gribble crawling out and waving to Hank. The other truckers could not contain their laughter of derision, and a humiliated Hank was forced to leave the diner with his son in tow. After patching the hole, an infuriated Hank is forced to take his three friends along for the journey to Arizona. However, due to the lost time in repairing the trailer, he was forced to drive on through the night with no sleep in order to maintain the schedule. With the weight of sleeplessness weighing down on him, Hank pulls his truck into a coffee shop and orders Bobby to get him some coffee. He would go himself, but due to the recent actions of Dale, Boomhauer, and Bill, Hank believed he needed to keep a wary eye on his stowaways. When Bobby returned with the coffee, he had found his father slumped over the steering wheel, the fatigue from the drive having finally caught up to him. As Bobby was taking this in, the same truckers from the previous stop passed by and noticed Hank sleeping at the wheel, and commented aloud that, "Playing trucker takes a lot out of you," and, "At least now he can tell all the other accountants he slept at a real truck stop." Incensed by the elitism and derision from the truckers, Bobby gathered the three friends to enlist their aid in driving the truck while his father rested in the sleeper cab. However, a problem appeared when they were about to pass under a bridge with a specific clearance level. Unknowing of the truck's height and succumbing to their own panic, they rerouted onto a different road. Once they were clear, Dale stated, "Well, this feels good, doesn't it?" He was dead wrong. Hours later in the morning, a rested Hank awakes to a curious scene through the windshield: snow. Seeing that his friend was awake, Dale informed Hank that they were having trouble with the engine and the clutch, and that they were on top of a mountain. After Hank had recomposed himself, he punished his friends by forcing them to stay behind the line of shame. Justifiably so, as the truck was out of fuel and the battery was dead, as the headlights made the group feel safer in the dark of the night previous. As Bobby proceeded to use the CB radio to call for help, Hank immediately stopped him on the basis of, "I don't want to bother real truckers with the problems of a guy who fell asleep and let his rig wind up on top of a mountain." Defeated, Hank opens his cell phone and begins to call AAA, which would then be followed by a call to a local moving company to deliver his mother's antique furniture. But Bobby refused to let him give up. In a rousing speech, he spoke of how real truckers always find a way through, ending with, "You're not just a guy with a truck, Dad." With a new sense of motivation, Hank enlists the help of his friends to use their cargo to get them down the mountain. The oil lamps that was in their cargo contained small amounts of kerosene, which was close enough to diesel to be used as a source of fuel, and if they could use gravity to propel the truck down the mountain, the motion would be enough to recharge the battery. But the plan would not be that simple. Hank would be unable to see the road as he was reversing down the mountain. So Boomhauer, armed with a walkie-talkie, would have to guide Hank on how to turn from his vantage point at the rear. Also, the straps and chains that held the furniture in place had to be used on the tires for traction, leaving only Bill Dauterive to prevent their precious cargo from spilling out of the open trailer. Boomhauer's guidance did not fail them. After several close calls that resulted in the destruction of their headlights and side mirrors, alongside the tireless work of one Bill Dozer Dauterive, the beleaguered crew made it down the mountain and back onto the road. After an unspecified amount of time, their truck managed to limp into a truck stop. Exhausted, the group made their way inside for food and coffee. But as Boomhauer was placing their orders, another group of real truckers overheard him and commented if one of them was named Hank. After some initial introductions, the first trucker to recognize Boomhauer, who was named Big John, explained that he and his boys were listening to their plight over the CB radio, and invited them to sit in the trucker's side of the restaurant. But Bobby replied that they needed to get going soon to make their delivery on time. Big John was impressed by the boys' dedication to the job, but he remarked that with no side mirrors or headlights, their truck would not be able to go very far. However, if Hank's group and John's truckers would join together, they could form a convoy that would safely ensure Hank's delivery to Arizona. Excited by this prospect, Hank eagerly accepted. After a long journey fraught with tourist traps, drive-thrus, traffic, and just general shenanigans, the convoy made it into the Holly Springs retirement village in Arizona, where Hank's mother awaited, her antique furniture arriving just in time for Christmas. Because a trucker helps his mama when he can. Hank Hill was a trucker, and he drove with pride, his seatbelt buckled and his boy by his side, hitting the road with a promise and a special load. He took a wrong turn trying to get back, wound up stranded in a mountain gap, out of diesel in the freezing cold. That old Hank Hill convoy rolling with the antique load he's hauling. Something, something, destination, mama's down the line.